Hello, and welcome to the December 14th meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. I'm Cynette Cavaliere, Chair, and welcome here tonight at the Town Hall. The very first thing we want to do is actually welcome Debbie Dry for a recognition. Yeah.
Oh.
So if you have a presentation to make, from what I understand?
I'm actually making it. Sorry.
Oh, Sarah's making it. Okay. Sarah's making it.
So we, with Rosanne Cohen, having her last meeting here tonight, wanted to present a proclamation that the town board initially presented at their last town board meeting. But for you and the community watching this, I will read that proclamation. Rosanne Cohen, celebrating a conservation-focused community leader. Whereas Rosanne Cohen has a long history of service to the Penfield community, and whereas Rosanne has been involved with town boards and committees since 2007, when she began serving on the Town of Penfield Conservation Board. And whereas most recently she served on the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee after the Conservation Board and the Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee merged earlier this year. And whereas she has dedicated a great deal of her time and effort to conservation efforts in Penfield, and whereas this work includes reviewing development projects in Penfield and participating in events educating the community on the importance of environmental conservation. And whereas this work, she has been an advocate for the Town of Penfield, becoming a member of the Tree City USA program and assisted in the development of the local tree law, which is currently being reviewed by the town board. And whereas the Town of Penfield appreciates the dedication of Rosanne and her commitment to improving Penfield. And now, therefore, the Penfield Town Board extends its gratitude to Rosanne for her 16 years of service. And that is dated December 14th, 2023, and signed by Debbie Draw.
Thank you, everybody. I really have enjoyed all my time on these boards and enjoyed working.
Photo, though, so.
With that, I am also presenting you with the actual proclamation and a coaster from the town.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
It's
nice
nice.
one.
Do we have a minute to take a photo? Sure.
Sure.
You should sit with your committee.
Okay.
You and Cynette. Yeah, you and Cynette should take a picture together.
You two want to join it over here? You'll come around?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sit here.
Yep. Been with Rosanne the entire 16 years.
Yeah, I know.
It's right from the conservation. We've all been on the conservation
Yeah.
and seen it through.
Long time.
Thank you for all your service.
Want to take it?
Yep. Ready?
Bring it a little closer. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Rosanne.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
This is beautiful. Thanks.
And we want to, in addition to thanking you for your time on this committee, although not as long as on the Conservation Board, I have enjoyed getting to know you. Yes, yes. And thank you for the treats for tonight here. That's kind of fun for us. So we all get chocolate face. You guys don't know why. Here it's
Peppermint here. Getting high on the scented peppermint.
Okay, so on to the standard part of the agenda here. The first one is the review and approval of minutes from the October meeting, since we did not have a November meeting. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes? Okay, if so, can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? No. Hearing none, they're accepted as presented. Thank you, Matt, once again for doing that. Okay, next on our agenda is we have a special guest, Eric Tate, here to do the Community Forest, DEC's Community Forest Storm Mitigation Planning Report.
Sure. I guess a little kind of history on this. So last month, back on November 2nd, Tim Masterton, our Parks Department foreman, myself, as well as actually everyone within our Parks Department, did attend a kind of a training conference seminar at the Draves Arboretum, where they kind of talked about a number of different aspects, all related to trees and kind of storm damage and mitigation to help make sure that those trees and vegetation can survive the more frequent and intense storms that we've been seeing more often, but really just even trying to promote kind of healthy forests within urban communities. With that, they did have a lot of, I guess, great information, things to look for, things to help assess the health of trees outside of kind of before storms, things that you could do, things to kind of keep in mind, ways to help kind of, whether it's pruning or trimming of particular branches to help promote the health, the overall health and the long-term health of any given tree, as well as kind of what things to be mindful of when you're actually dealing with storm damage itself. As part of it, they did also provide I want to say fill in the blank, but a little bit of a kind of a template to help doing some tree, as part, as you read the title, a community for storm mitigation planning, more or less a guide for New York State communities. So it goes through a little bit of everything, kind of assessing what trees you have, where they are, kind of the quantity, basically the relevant facts, about those trees, the size, the condition, as well as a little bit of everything, what you've got to do for storm response, storm mitigation, and more or less helps provide a template for municipal communities within New York State to help be prepared for storms, but also in how to react. So I know I had shared the kind of the packet with Sarah. Felt that it might be practical and beneficial to this group to at least kind of provide an update. This was part of the New York State DEC's relief seminar. I know a number of our employees within DPW and especially our Parks Department have attended quite a few of these seminars, found them extremely beneficial to be able to help kind of look at all of the trees we've got on town property, within our right-of-ways, within our parks, to be able to make sure that we're trying to promote the health of those, but also to mitigate any risk and take down any trees that are dead, dying, diseased, or otherwise hazardous. So again, just wanted to give a little brief overview on that training that we had gone to. Certainly thought that it was extremely beneficial.
We appreciate you coming in and sharing that.
Sure.
Are there any questions for Eric about that seminar?
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's great that we have a template, but are we going to take the template and do something with it now? Or are we going to apply it to your standard operating procedures in the town?
So yes, certainly wanted to share it with Sarah, wanted to share it with this group as well. I believe Tim is already starting to kind of take a look at our parks themselves. The number of trees we have that are technically town trees between right-of-ways, town properties, and parks, there's thousands. So certainly want to prioritize the ones that are in the middle of parks that we can get to. Our heavily wooded and forest areas, while they could be counted, may not be as important, but more so, the trees that could actually pose a risk to someone, enjoying the parks. We could expand it to the right-of-ways. It would be quite a project to undertake. And I know a lot of some of the speakers were from other towns and from other counties, specifically primarily from emergency management standpoint, and have been working on theirs continuously for years and years. So it's not something that would be quickly implemented either, or at least quickly finished. But you've got to start somewhere.
And I also think it would be beneficial to consider this document and how that might be applied when we're looking at doing our forestry plan in the future. Because it does talk about some items that would be included in that, but also talking with Eric and Tim separate from this meeting, we could dive into doing so many different things in town, but the question is, where do we put our resources at this time? And that, I think the forestry management plan is going to be the most beneficial guide to help make those decisions.
It sounds to me like this would be an element of the forestry plan ultimately. It's
Yes.
not only looking at current health of trees, but which ones are at risk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does this, you may have mentioned this, does this include saying to start off with a tree inventory, you know, which we had been talking about? Or, I mean, it's hard to catalog every single tree in the town. I don't mean
Sure.
that, but areas.
This packet itself is more or less, it does encompass and include the tree inventory. It also includes, a number of different things. As you see, there's, pages and pages of just what each section is, what responsibility falls under who, what you do. I know Sarah's got the public tree inventory specifically highlighted, or has the cursor next to that, which is on page 28. So there's quite a bit in here with the intent that you can more or less use this template could adopt the template and use that as your kind of your forestry plan.
Are there any elements in here that have knowledge that would be beneficial to our residents? I mean, I know that we have a couple trees in our, backyard that my husband loves to call the widow maker, that he's afraid like every storm that something's going to come down off of it. And
So this document itself didn't really provide recommendations or, make any judgment calls, more or less. It was more based on kind of your own training and knowledge and background, how you fill this in and indicate any of those hazards per tree or location.
This is publicly available document, right?
Yes. Yep. It's I believe it was put together by the DEC. I believe it's on their website. I also think I have it. I know I have it as a PDF within my email, so I could always send that out to the group as well.
Yeah, I haven't. This is a relatively new template. On that relief, they said that they were the relief flyer. They had mentioned that this was going to be, a new document they were presenting there. I haven't been able to locate it on their website, but obviously, we have a digital copy of it that we can share with the committee. But yeah, as Eric was saying, it's a very comprehensive document that doesn't have like specific guidelines that our construction design specifications would have, but it does piece together a lot of those elements that all go into, community forest storm mitigation. So, there's a lot of little bits and pieces that I could see this committee potentially, looking into or trying to, just fill in the blank more or less on the template, and then hopefully pass that on to our town forestry plan.
And its focus is mainly on the storm mitigation piece of it, right? But it goes into a lot of other stuff that would be beneficial for a forestry plan.
Yeah, to the point of for storm mitigation, it's generally how you're handling trees ahead of the storms to prevent damage during a storm. So those are the items that would likely be most applicable.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it crosses, over that there are things that would be helpful to our goals, and certainly things for actual maintenance and looking at it, picking at it to make it this town's own.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a worthwhile read, especially for committee members. And the biggest thing is that we wanted Eric to come and share about the class, what their take was from the class and who of staff attended, so that the committee could be aware of that and kind of brought into that loop.
Thank you.
Yep. I mean, it was as I was saying before, it was put together kind of in conjunction with the DEC, as well as not Monroe County, but another county's emergency management personnel, with the idea that I guess, and selfishly from emergency management, they're looking at worst case scenario. So they wanted to know what trees they have, and in the event of some type of emergency, whether, specifically weather related, what challenges may they be faced with, and especially, as far as trees, if there's some kind of windstorm and then there's snow to follow, you may be out trying to plow the roads, but what may be buried in that snow that you're not aware of. So I thought it was certainly, I don't ever want the worst case scenario. A lot of, DPW, some of the things we have to do is also dealing with kind of those worst case scenarios and responding to different weather events.
Great. Well, thank you for coming and presenting.
Sure.
And we'll keep going on with the agenda if everyone's comfortable with that.
Thank
Great.
you very much for sharing.
Sure.
Does sound like a good seminar to go to, so.
A lot of those relief workshops are good.
Yeah.
They are. We've gotten a lot out of them. I know the presentations that were even shared were sent over, and I can forward those on as well. Sure.
Okay. Next thing is the standing report from the Monroe County Environmental Management Council, and that's from me. As I get to attend the meeting, I have prepared the notes from the previous 2 meetings. And I think these will, only because it didn't get a chance to look, I sent them to you yesterday. Did you get a chance to send them out to everybody? No,
I
okay.
did not. They haven't
Okay.
gone out to anyone, but
Okay,
I
so
can
they're going to
certainly
be
share
here.
them.
So the
Yeah.
October meeting focus of that meeting was a review from the Monroe County Parks Department, which was quite interesting because I'm not necessarily a native here. So to hear the breadth of the Parks Department for Monroe County was interesting. Just some statistics that are up there with the number of facilities that they're managing. And then they gave an overview of some money that they've been able to spend and how they've used it to improve some of the parks. I think some of the most interesting ones were just the idea of the accessible mats at the beach areas, so that they have these mats that you can put down and it allows access onto the beach for people in wheelchairs and other mobility restricted devices. So, but they say that it's kind of fun because now that they're there, that families seem to love them with strollers because it's not like pushing a stroller in the sand is, one of those impossible tasks.
From experience, it makes it so much easier.
Yes, yes. But they also do laugh because it looks like 95% of the people will now enter the beach on the mat instead of realizing they can enter anywhere on the beach. They kind of focus like, oh, we need to go here to get on the beach. So there's a couple zoo updates in there talking about one of the giraffes that was born and added to the zoo and another one, and then some of the updates that they have going on, and then some future talk of interest to us was just the number of trees that they've put in the parks during the current administration, 940 trees over the past couple of years. And a little talk about what they're trying to replace. It was interesting for me to hear that they're talking oak, crabapple, red gum, and after hearing the presentation that we had in October, hearing like the same species called out was just kind of fun to see. And then November 15th meeting, our presenter for that meeting was Anita O'Brien from Rochester's Accessible Adventures, and that's a not-for-profit that's been set up to really focus on making these parks that we've talked about and any of the recreational areas accessible by everybody. So some real just interesting facts was the idea that 1 in 4 Americans is living with a disability, but that's only touching because each of those people has a family or loved ones associated, that their ability to have access gets restricted if they can't take that family member with them. So lots of conversations about some of the different activities that they've worked on, making sure accessible, from biking and kayaking to actually talking about adaptive mountain biking, little things like birding that you would just never think about if you want to get somebody to be able to go out and enjoy the identifying birds, and that activity is what kind of steps do you have to take in place. So this is really was a very interesting presentation just to hear of the little steps that you take, and they assist in doing the surveys and identifying some simple things that towns and municipalities can put in place to make their facilities more accessible. And then our next meeting is December 20, and we're going to hear about the Climate Action Plan for Monroe County. So hopefully that's something I think a little bit more familiar that Monroe County's been working on diligently for a couple years now. Any questions on that report? Okay.
So Matt, you're gonna send that out?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can
thank you.
share that on the Google
No,
Drive.
that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. He did not get a lot of advanced access to it.
No
It's-
worries.
One of Daniel's tips to me was go ahead and wait till the minutes come out from the organization, then it makes it easier for me to write my report, and then that came out like Wednesday, so then he got it, or Tuesday, so then he got it Wednesday.
Gotta hustle
And you were
that.
very timely.
Very timely. That's before the meeting. The next one is our review of required items. And this one should go fairly fast here. Town development projects.
There are no requests for review of town development projects at this time. Yep.
Okay. Requests from the town board.
The town board has requested that this committee review the comments that came in for the town tree law. We've sent those out previously. There were 2 comments that formally came in. So we can discuss that now if you'd like.
And that's why we were in this format, which when we came in, we were like, why are we like this? But we figured it out eventually here. It's like, so have you had a chance to review the?
I read them both when it first came out, and I had a chance to review one of them, and I never made it back to the laptop to
Okay.
review it, so I'm glad.
Okay, so we'll be
'cause it
able to
was so
scan them
long
here.
ago.
The biggest thing I think Sarah pointed out when we did our planning was that their comments were actually based.
It looks like their comments were based on a previous version. Specifically, they refer to, I'll find the actual wording. The Director of Public Works and their designee having full authority and responsibility. That phrase was changed prior to it going to the town board. And I don't actually have it right in front of me.
Yeah, so-
But the wording was changed essentially to bring the authority to the Director of Public Works and the different departments having authorization, but I don't remember the exact wording. So that made it seem like the comments were just from a different version. Not that there were vast changes. The real big changes were that sentence, and then there was more information put in the definition of the forestry plan, noting that an arborist would be involved in the development of that plan. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Because the other one mentioned arborist as well, and I was like, well, I think we were taught,
Yep.
we
And
said we
then-
needed an arborist, so.
I have had the opportunity to speak with, at minimum, one of the commenters, and she mentioned that she does recognize a number of her comments would apply to the forestry plan and not just the town tree law. So that's something to consider in these discussions.
Yeah.
I'll just take a moment just to mention that for anyone that, wants to know where the latest version or what the town board is considering for the town tree law, and really any time that, something is before the town board, the best location to find that information is on the town board page. So for that public hearing that was on November 1st, if you go to that meeting, so like when you load the page, it'll have each year mentioned there, and then so the packet for that meeting, if you click that, it'll open the latest draft, or the one that was being discussed before the town board for that meeting. So this is the version that would have been available to the public and was reviewed by the town board at that public hearing, or I should say really before that, because they reviewed it at the work session before that. So this is the version that has the authority mentions just shall have the authority, not have full authority, and mentions the town forestry plan and all that. So this is the latest version that is available for the public to view.
And
So, yeah.
this version also has the portion which is under Section 3, Authority B, coordination among town departments.
Yeah.
And that's something that the committee previously discussed as well.
Right.
This is on the town website.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. So that
Sorry, I
was.
didn't know if you meant Google,
sorry.
but you said it was available
sorry, yeah.
to
So
everybody.
this is right on the
this one
town.
is the town
yeah,
website.
on the
Okay.
on the town's website, on that town board page is where it's available. So then, rather than making like a town tree law page, it's for consistency's sake, we want to keep something that is under the discussion at a public hearing for a town board in their agenda items and in their meeting. So anytime there's something that needs to be discussed at that meeting and an interested, resident wants to find that information, it's under that meeting's, items and packet. Right, exactly.
Couple of thoughts, I guess. One is, what does the town want us to do besides review these comments? Are they looking for our opinion on what they should do with the comments, or what exactly does that mean, review the comments?
That's a really good question. At this time, with some new town board members coming in the new year, it's not actually possible for it to be finally approved this year. So my recommendation as staff would be to review the comments. If you have feedback on changes based on these comments you think that the town tree law would benefit from, then we can put those together. And as the new town board comes in, we can get information from them onto, are they looking for a formal recommendation? Are they looking just for an email, so that we can kind of give more direction to the committee and go through whatever formal process they would prefer. So again, for right now, we would discuss the comments. If there's something that you as committee members feel would be beneficial to the tree law as it currently stands, as a change, or even suggestions to the town board, then we can document that at this time.
Okay. So I would say let's just go through item by item and just talk about each one.
Sure.
And relate back, as you did, to what the portion of what the town board is considering, what we referred over
To the tree law?
relates to it. Yes.
Okay, sure.
Like you said, oh, well, it changed and it's such and such now. So.
Sure. So are you comfortable then, if we go section by section, we can kind of do a short summary instead of reading it word for word?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Cool. Then in the first, we're looking at the comments from Megan Meyer from 11/1/23. In the first section, it's discussing that she appreciates the town looking to preserve trees and putting this tree law together. If you're comfortable with that, we'll keep going.
No real need for,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Then in the next section, that she thinks that we're in need of more trees on town properties, and specifically refers to an example at the Penfield Library and Recreation Center.
And I can even speak on behalf of that.
Yeah.
So there were a number of trees that were taken down. They were deemed to be in poor health. Actually, while taking those trees down, one of them ended up splitting in half. The intent with taking those trees down, because of the poor health, was to actually replant with new trees. We just haven't gotten to that point yet. So I know she, shared some concern over the fact that they were taken down and nothing put back. We will be putting trees back in their place, or at least replanting trees in that property, but want to make sure that they're not going to impact any of the infrastructure of the building either.
And then the conclusion of that comment was that she sees items like this as a benefit to having a resident-led tree board, to whether that's to share direction with residents or let the public know more of what's going on. Maybe those are the direction.
That one sounded to me very much being a communication issue, that it would be nice somehow to to be able to keep ahead of it, to say, hey, you know, at the library, we've noticed 5 trees that we're going to need to take down. Here's the plan to remove the trees. Here's the plan to replace them.
If there's an easy conduit for some back and forth for
Right.
residents. I know that there was one, I don't know if it came up at one of these meetings or just mentioned in general. To me, it's something else. Quite a while ago about some, what they believe, clear cutting of trees on town property, and it was not town property. So that people can have some sort of a set conduit rather than perhaps a town
So I don't know if that would be a
resident
role of a tree board as it is. I don't know if
I don't
that's
think
like,
that would. I think that would be something on our communications director.
Yeah, that's
or
what I'm
on
thinking.
website at this point. But that's feedback that you can bring back to staff
Right.
and give.
you know, because you've just communicated all of that. We looked at the trees, they were not healthy, we took them down, we're investigating how to get them planted, it just hasn't happened yet. You know, and I think,
Public record now.
right,
You've just responded.
Well, just something shy of a formal letter to the town, or
Yeah.
things like that
so
somebody
every time
can-
you take down a tree, you go, no,
Yes.
we do not want to go there.
No.
And I thought it may, I could be wrong, I thought it had been discussed at a town board meeting and a work session. However, off the top of my head, I could not give you that date.
Yep.
So I think with this comment, there's nothing that would change the ordinance or change anything the way it was written at this point.
I agree.
Yeah, I think her main comment there was if there is a tree board or a tree committee or something, that it would be nice to make sure that there is a resident leader of it. And that's, we've been hesitant as a team to mandate that, to put that in writing anywhere, because we really feel that's part of the town's administration to come up with the best way to put that together.
Well, in the same vein, it was not having one of this committee members
Right.
being on it either, which is
Right.
something we had discussed before.
Just for some clarity, there are resident-led tree boards in some towns that review every single tree that's taken down. That's something that was discussed and part of why this committee was a little hesitant with that idea. And then there's resident-led tree boards that discuss certain trees that would be taken down. So that's kind of what this comment is referring to. I would agree that it does not affect the tree law as it is, other than that this resident is requesting there to be a tree board. If you're comfortable with that, we'll keep going. In this comment, the resident brought up that the purpose and goals should reflect the important role trees play in the current times of climate change and biodiversity loss, and then she goes into some details of why she feels that that would be beneficial. Does anyone have comments on that?
Don't disagree, but I don't know if it really needs to be in the tree ordinance. I mean, it's a great sentiment, absolutely 100% agree with that, but I don't think it needs to be in the ordinance.
Right. And I had wrote a note on that when that presentation, when that comment was made, is, first of all, I mean, that just doesn't personally reflect my style of putting something together. I think we were just very much factual as opposed to adding in things that may or may not reflect the opinions of all of the residents or all of the members of the town board even. So I'm always hesitant to add extra things. So I think it's probably the engineer, you do that enough times, there's no fluff in there if you don't need it. So I think our purpose and preamble states accurately and effectively the purpose of the ordinance.
Okay. Then continuing on, we briefly discussed this comment referring to full authority, and that was actually changed already in the tree law to represent, to just take out the full. So it's giving the Director of Public Works the authority. or their designee, and it's also discussing requirements that are needed, that it's required for them to work with other departments together, and that it's not just one person making a decision.
Under the guidance of the town forestry
Yes.
plan, which is the key. So I think this comment's been addressed already, but
So I think we've already actually resolved that with the wording.
Yep. Then the next comment specifically is asking for the town to have not just a town tree department at the DPW, which is the current direction we're moving in, but to have a town forester and offer workshops on proper pruning for those employees responsible. I would like to share, and if you have questions, Eric can probably go further into it, but the employees in the Parks Department, and I believe actually additionally other town employees, do go to workshops and have education in maintaining trees, and they're continuing their education regularly. So it's the people that are working on these trees are educated. They may not be arborists or specifically a town forester, but they are educated in what they're doing.
I know she specifically, and we can see it here, mentioned a pruning practice. I don't personally know anything about that, whether that was intentional or just happenstance that trees were pruned to give a 10-foot opening underneath
And I don't know that it was, whether 10 foot's exact or if it's an exaggeration. There were trees that were kind of pruned and trimmed up along the base, some of which were laying on the ground, and there were actually kind of grass and vines growing up through the tree, which, being that close, the vines growing up through the branches were actually choking out and killing some of those trees, strangling them. But also just with kind of sight distance into the property itself, to be able to see what's going on. There was trimming done to be able to take care of the maintenance kind of around and under those trees, but it's not a set in stone practice that no branches can be at, within 10 feet of the ground on any given tree.
yeah, I think with this one here, that's more of a town forestry plan guidance type of thing, where you put the guidance into the town forestry plan. You have your forester, your arbiter, the best practice, the latest scientific research would go into that plan, which would then guide the DPW, versus having the DPW or having a arborist oversee everything the DPW does. It doesn't make much sense. So.
Those are the operating procedures that we've been talking about memorializing. And I think that I know what you're saying about there isn't an actual practice, but by virtue of, and I'm not saying it's being done, but if it's been done in one park and the individual has borne witness to it going to another park, it may not be a policy in writing, but if it's happening, then it's that practice that's not memorialized.
And I can say there have been other times, more so in the past, where our mowing is contracted out, or the mowing company has actually come in and just trimmed up trees because they wanted more room underneath them.
Sure.
And as soon as we were notified of that, we reached out and said, you absolutely cannot do this. If there's something that needs to be done as far as trimming, let us know. We will do that. We've got our own staff that is trained as to, where to make that cut to be able to, promote the health of the tree versus just cutting, any given branch that you want gone.
Yeah, I could see a mowing company want to do
Yes.
that with a stand-up mower. They want
Sure.
Yep.
just to be able to not duck.
Yep.
And that's probably what's,
And that situation has come up in the past. We have addressed that. However, those branches unfortunately have been cut and they're not going to come back.
right.
So if you hire a new contract out to a new, maybe it's kind of forewarned that it's something to let them know up front,
Yep.
so that it's not a beg forgiveness versus
Yeah,
permission.
and we do, whether the contract changes from one year to the next or not, we still meet with the companies before they ever start in the spring, and then routinely throughout the year too, just to make sure that everything's being done per the contract.
Yeah. Okay. Then we get to move to page 2.
If you're comfortable with it, I'd say that page 2 is kind of all together, that this resident is recommending that the town become a Tree City USA, and specifically move forward with a resident-led tree board or committee, as we previously discussed, and then give some references on native plants and keystone species.
Well, I think we've wanted to make nod to, native species and keystone plants as we've been talking.
Yeah, we think that, to me, that's definitely part of the forestry plan. But once again, I think forestry plan is only on town trees. So it does sound like the information that we gather in developing the forestry plan will be of benefits to residents, and we should make sure that that's somehow available to them. Has nothing to do with the forestry plan or the ordinance at this point in time, but a good practice somehow.
And the forestry plan would be available to all residents.
Right.
That definitely would happen.
Yes, and so then the other key of just is within this is the makeup of the tree board or department. And I think once again, in developing the ordinance, we didn't want to be overly specific with that, which is why we had left it with the authority of the DPW and associated departments, as opposed to calling out a specific one. And I think it still lends the opportunity in developing, when the arborist comes on board and in developing the forestry plan to determine if a tree board should be put together that does include more of a resident representation. You guys agree with that? I mean, I think we've all said, yeah, that would be really nice to have, but it's not our part to necessarily specify that as a requirement.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the way we kind of worded it, though, it really just, we don't exclude it, but we don't include it, so it's up to really however the town wants to do it, and then however the forestry plan gets written, essentially.
And I think we've included in that, like seeking assistance of arborist or, perhaps hiring an arborist, because I always look back to saying, well, this area has the responsibility for it, but it doesn't mean that they're left all by themselves without seeking professional input, when decisions need to be made. It's just...
And for clarity, the town is looking to employ an arborist that's
Okay.
already in the budget for next year.
Okay.
So we can't do anything until the new budget starts in 2024. But at that point, we will start looking for arborists and taking applications and going through all of that process.
Yes, because I know we all...
It's not a short process, but it will happen next year, which is not too far away.
No, and it's the point that we made, that this would,
Yeah.
that their services would be available, so.
There might be some grant money or something to help us do a forestry plan.
I'm hoping. It's not available yet, but we're watching. Great. So is everyone comfortable with that set of comments? And we'll move on to the other set of comments?
And I think the idea of in being in positive towards becoming a tree city is that this is a good reason why we're doing this, was to pursue that. That was the
Well,
whole...
and I think it's beneficial for residents to go to the town board and support that, just as this committee has been doing and has formally recommended to the town board. And this is the local tree law is one of the first steps to doing that. So. So we'll move on to the other set of comments. These ones it's a little different, but we'll go in order starting at 1. And the first comment is recommending an independent advisory committee, similar to the other residents' comments on a resident-led committee, and doesn't think that only the DPW should have ownership of the decision-making. As we discussed previously, in the local tree law as it is currently written, the DPW does not have the wholesale ownership of all of the decision-making, and that's between departments. And those employees are getting continuing education on tree maintenance.
Which actually then almost feeds into the second one, because the point of the first one is if we did have an arborist, then that would also be somebody else to assist in the decision-making.
Yep. And as we discussed at this meeting, as well as previous, we will have a town arborist on staff as a consultant. So not an employee that sits at the town hall or the DPW, but one that we can reach out to as a consultant.
I can also say, in addition to that, we do, my Parks Department foreman is also pursuing his arborist certification. He has been deemed qualified per his kind of background and his job knowledge. He's kind of going through studying for the test, and will hopefully be doing that shortly.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're excited for
It's a
him.
double bonus.
Yes.
Yep. If you're comfortable, and then also the second comment mentions the benefit or the understanding of native and keystone planting is very important, as we've discussed previously. If you're comfortable, we'll move on to the third comment, which this resident feels that the law should include the maintenance and mapping of an inventory for all trees on public property, and then goes into detail of what would be included in that inventory. I don't know what everyone's background is and understanding is with tree inventories, but as Eric mentioned earlier in this meeting, like if we just look at right-of-ways in towns and like the center parts of parks, then we're already at thousands of trees. If we start including the wooded areas at our parks and our town lands, obviously those numbers are vastly increasing. So any consideration of a tree inventory and mapping will need to also consider the large cost of that. And I can't speak to details on that, but Eric may be able to share
Just
some
as
idea.
a quick question, what is our current definition of the forestry plan? Did we, because I think it was our understanding that inventory as appropriate would be part of that. Okay, so there it is.
While tree
Can you make that
inventory
big? Thank
isn't
you.
in there, conducting town tree surveys is.
Okay.
And I should say, this was a definition that we got from another forestry plan, another municipal forestry plan.
And then we added too.
Yeah.
Didn't we add the arborist section?
Yes,
down at the
yeah,
bottom,
that last sentence. But specific to those items that would be included so those are items that are typically standard or set in the definition in a town tree code. But I believe that even that inclusion of town tree survey has that possibility that an arborist can recommend that we need to survey an area for trees that are hazardous, and that could be the beginning of a tree inventory. But we're not committing in code or in the town tree law a specific wholesale tree inventory.
Yeah, so did we define town tree survey anywhere? I mean, that would include an inventory.
Well, a survey to me does not necessarily, a
Of an
survey
area.
would be of an area, yes. And I think that's kind of the indication here is it would survey an area, therefore you would have an inventory of
Of
an
the area.
area.
So it could be all the right-of-ways. It could
Right.
be,
It could be a
But-
given
Parks.
property, it could be a given park.
Right, but it
could
wouldn't be necessarily all-inclusive or,
But this resident's comment is specifically saying, include the maintenance and mapping of an inventory for all trees on public property. And I'm just giving you a reference so you have an idea of all of
yeah,
the
it
trees
could be-
on
Sure.
public property.
100,000 trees. I mean, it could be a lot.
And I don't think truthfully, I don't think that I would want to recommend with this committee that we do all trees without knowing the scope of that.
Right, and I think that our forestry plan, by that particular definition, which was not quite the definition as reviewed before these comments, but by us including the status and goals, I think that is something that might get put in as a goal of a forestry plan, but that would be for that future determination. And I would be hesitant to put that in as a requirement in the ordinance, because to me, that could potentially be a showstopper.
Yes, I would, if I were the town board, I would say I don't want to put this into law without understanding the cost of something like that, make a law that we can't possibly pay for.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
just the cost, it's what's the value of doing that right. So like, there's certain probably sensitive areas where you'd want to potentially do an inventory, and so we may not want to do it. So my whole thing is like, yeah, I agree with the sentiment, but I think your inventory is a longer term journey and not a, let's get to do this and before this can even go into place. No, it's
Right.
going to be, we do an inventory over the course of maybe 10 or 15 years. We'll have one eventually, but we'll get there.
Great. If you're comfortable, we'll move on to the last comment, number 4, which refers that the town code or law should ensure that native and keystone plantings are the focus and should be part of the town, and this should be part of our tree town focus.
Yeah, so I think, do you think she meant town tree, or, it was an interesting,
not sure.
during the public hearing, all of the speakers seemed to call Tree City Tree Town.
Oh.
So it was, I couldn't
Yeah.
quite tell if it was talking about you should become designated as a tree town at the top.
Well,
Was it Tree City?
We can definitely clarify that.
Yes.
Especially because this resident is now on the town board in
Yeah.
January.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting, and I don't know which one spoke first, but the word Tree City and Tree Town kind of were used back and forth.
I mean, I agree with this sentiment about, focus on native or keystone plantings, but I think that's all part of the
Forestry plan.
forestry plan. So like it shouldn't be codified in the code. It should be in the forestry plan.
I would agree with that sentiment.
So whether it's tree town focus or town tree focus, I think it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely, I think all of the presentations we've had and all the data that we've gathered, it says that, hey, making sure that it's native or keystone is important to us.
Yep.
Great.
Agree.
Are there any additional thoughts or comments from the public hearing, like based on the public hearing or based on this resident feedback that we received? Okay. Do you have something?
So I didn't attend the public hearing, so was there a lot of verbal comments?
No, it was actually these two, and we received one just before the meeting, the first one we reviewed tonight, and then she spoke and read her comments. And then the other one, which is the one that we just reviewed, she spoke her comments and then provided this afterwards at our request, because we wanted to make sure that we presented it as accurately as possible.
Yeah.
So it was just these two residents that gave feedback at the public hearing.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say, just summing up, there isn't really anything that, you can go through your notes, so I didn't remember anything that would be a change to the ordinance.
I think that the big item that would have been a change has already been changed in the authority section.
So I'll just go back to my earlier comment about what the town wants from us, that they want a recommendation or letter, or some sort of,
We'll get that feedback. That will likely come at the beginning of the year. And I'm sorry for the delay on that. It's
No
just,
worries.
it's a little complicated right now. So, then if you're comfortable, we'll move on to item C, clean energy community actions. We wanted to give feedback on the LED streetlight upgrade. That is planned to be completed this week, but because they have already reached 50% on the Cobra headlights as well as the decorative lights, we have submitted to Clean Energy Communities and gotten those 2 actions approved as completed, because we're only required to do 50%. We are going above that and doing 100%, but we received that credit. And that was 900 points towards our Clean Energy Community goals. In addition to that, we, the engineering department with the building department went through and actually produced a resolution for the town board to adopt the unified solar permit as part of our permitting for the town. And that passed at the beginning of December by the town board. So the town is now moving forward with that permit application. So anyone coming to the town looking to put in residential solar will fill out the New York State Unified Solar Permit with the town's logo and such. And that's more universal across municipalities in New York State. We will see if we can get Clean Energy Community points for that. But as of yesterday, the new pond came out. So there are new high-impact action items that we are just starting to go through, and we'll see if we can get that grandfathered in.
Okay. When do the PON?
I forget what it stands for, but basically it's new regulations.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's a short.
It's an acronym, PON, right? Something like that. It's just I can't come up with it either.
I'm sorry.
But it's, was there a date on that document or was it a?
It came out yesterday and officially started yesterday, and there's not a
Okay.
formal date on the document.
Okay. Okay, that'll be interesting to find out about.
But there's new grant opportunities with that, so that's exciting, and I'll tell you more when I'm done reviewing all of it.
Okay. So we'll make a note for that for our January meeting, perhaps, to do that. Okay.
So it's Program Opportunity Notice.
Thank you.
By CERTA.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you are interested in looking on your own, you can search Clean Energy Communities on Google, and that will bring you to that webpage, and you can learn before I share more.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping we can grandfather because it sounds like we were done before it switched. So
Yeah.
that would be nice points to have.
What was that again, Roy? Program?
Opportunity Notice. Are we still planning on doing an update to our code for solar installations, and where does that stand now?
It's under review by multiple departments.
Okay.
Is there a plan for that? Like, once the review is done, it'll be like, go back to...
My expectation right now is that it will come to this committee before going to the town board,
Okay.
and I do not have a time frame on that right now.
Is that something on our list of
It's on
things to, progress document is something to follow up on?
Yep.
Okay. It is. I see it there. Very good. Okay. And is that close your review of our items?
It
If
does.
so, we can move into old business, which was quite a moving target for us to come up with. The first one is the town tree law. I believe that you have given us the status of that with where it is now and with the new board coming in, that it will roll over to January before any additional action is taken place.
Yep, that's correct.
It's a little sad, but it's okay.
It gives us an opportunity to still become a town, Tree City USA next year.
It's fun. Okay. The second item is community choice aggregation.
Just a brief item that we previously discussed, that letters went out, that the program was renewing in December, so the program has started its renewal. Depending on when your meter read is, you might not have seen that new pricing yet, but we received quite a number of phone calls in the past few months, and those are starting to reduce. Mostly residents asking about the program, asking if the letter is legitimate, and some residents opting out of the program or opting in. And we'll keep moving forward with that. And then the other item I wanted to share within that, at the previous meeting, which I was not in attendance for, the RG&E rate case was brought up, and I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that the RG&E rate case only affects the delivery fees, and it does not affect the supply fees. The CCA program only affects the electricity supply.
Okay.
And in that meeting also, I think I brought up a question related to whether the letters would go out to people who opted out originally.
The letters did not go out to anyone that opted out originally. Based on New York State regulations, anyone that previously took an action to not be part of the program would not be included in the renewal. And that will continue as long as the program keeps going. The only difference is if there's like a 6-month break, that would be a new program starting.
But they could opt in if they found out about the program and wanted to opt in.
They sure can, at any time with no fee.
Okay. How often do you do a formal, like, presentation on the comparison of the rates? Or is it just the expectation that residents should all look on the website?
The general hope is that residents will look on the website. Any resident that I touch base with, I refer to the website, and if I'm specifically on the phone or in person with them, I will give them that rate comparison. And that rate comparison is updated by the end of the first week every month. It was recently updated, I think maybe a week or two ago.
Looks like Matt's diving in there for
He
us
is,
here,
if you
to
just scroll down.
show where it is here. Thank you.
And then this page was also updated, so it no longer reflects the previous program's pricing. It only reflects this renewal program.
Okay. And once again, it's just interesting because it's only the RG&E previous pricing, it's because they can't actually say as of tomorrow their pricing will be, so.
Yeah, and that's specifically because RG&E provides electricity supply at the market rate, so that changes by the day.
Yeah.
So this is just the supply charges then?
This is just the electricity supply charges. It is not the gas supply charges.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you look at this, it looks like Penfield Green is 100% is way more expensive than the average RG&E price comparison.
However, although as my neighbor put it, that few cents a kilowatt hour is worth it to have 100% green energy. So it is something to take in perspective, is that we're given that 50% green as well as the 100% green opportunity.
And the value of this program, although is not currently a savings program, it is that this is an opportunity for residents as an option to have renewable energy, which is a lot more difficult to get on their own.
Okay, thank you for that. Next item, is there anything else on that one before okay, the next item is the Mayor's Monarch Pledge.
I just wanted to share formally that we have completed the Mayor's Monarch Pledge and had all of our action items approved for 2023. And I figured I would quickly review those action items for the committee and the residents. Matt is scrolling through that page. If you scroll down a little farther, you'll get and click down under action items, go the bold, so that they'll show. So those items are to engage with city parks and recreation and sustainability specifically, and other relevant staff to identify opportunities to revise and maintain mowing programs. The town actually has started a new mowing program at Shadow Pines this past year, a meadow mowing program, which reduces the time frame of mowing certain sections to allow meadow plants to grow and thrive. It is still necessary to mow every 2 to 3 years so that we're not getting trees growing up in that area. But by reducing that, it allows native species such as the monarch and other pollinators to thrive. So that was one of the actions we took. Another was to issue a proclamation to raise awareness about the monarch butterfly. This proclamation also raised awareness about pollinators and the benefits that they provide. That was done at the EV car show as well as a town board meeting this past year. Under program and demonstration gardens, with the help of Healthy Yards Monroe and Color Penfield Green, a native seed sale was done with the Victory Garden this year. And then also Healthy Yards Monroe and specifically Megan Meyer helped put together a class on milkweed seed collection as well as other pollinator seed collection and propagation efforts. And then lastly, under that section, to plant and maintain a monarch and pollinator-friendly demonstration garden that was created this past year as part of classes with Healthy Yards Monroe and work from the DPW at the community center. So if you're driving towards the community center and going around that loop in that center, there's both a sun and a shade garden. Then lastly, as a system change, the town has included in the comprehensive plan monarch butterfly conservation and references to pollinators this past year. So an action item for this committee to consider for 2024 is if this committee would like to recommend to the town board to pursue the mayor's monarch pledge in the next year, as it's a yearly item. The big requirements are you have to complete 3 or more items on this gigantic list of options.
Do they have to be different from what we did this year, or can they be?
There's requirements of so many in each section.
Okay.
So system changes versus program and demonstration gardens, but you're not required to complete different ones.
Okay. Will you be able to give us the likelihood of being able to accomplish 3 for 2024 so that we?
Simply put, if we continue to do what we're doing with the current mowing programs and maintain the gardens as is, and then this committee is already looking to do an Arbor Day celebration with a plant or tree giveaway, that would accomplish a minimum of 3 items.
Okay.
So pretty low lift.
Okay.
Yep.
Is the feel of this group is that we want to recommend that for a 2024? Do we
Yes.
want to actually make it, is it something motionable? Do you think we should?
Sure.
Okay. Do you guys want to make a motion that we do that?
I'll motion it.
So my understanding is that Roy is making a formal motion for the EECC to recommend to the town board to pursue the mayor's monarch pledge in 2024.
That is correct. That's words, they came right out of his mouth.
I second.
All in favor? I say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. I think that's a good thing just to start or end the year with, is that looking forward.
And I have a whole pile of seeds that I collected off of my cone flowers to give over to Megan or whoever else wants them.
That's a brave one. Those ones get sharp quickly.
They are. It was painful.
They're good ones. So they
I
get sharp
haven't pulled
quickly.
them off of the pods.
Yeah.
That was the hurtful part.
They're so pretty though.
Okay, I think we can move on to the EECC progress document. She's called up. The link was sent out to us. This was the list of things that we had talked about kind of in our little mini brainstorming session as things we wanted to make sure that we continued discussion on or set goals toward.
Would you like me to go through each item or open it to the committee to make comments or additional items?
I would say if there's anything that requires additional, that you feel additional input would be helpful for? I mean, we already talked about the town sustainability code. You kind of gave a real quick, knowing that it's on there is
Sure.
helpful.
So a big thing that we need to early in the year discuss is an Arbor Day celebration and how this committee would like that to look. That's one of the main items. You scroll up.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
No, that's
the one document I didn't bring with me.
Oh, okay, well, here. Other than the fact that I think you added just the one note there too was, yeah. Or two notes.
Yep, and then I did add to invite a speaker from Climate Smart Communities. Rachel Scooter, I think is how you pronounce her name, is currently the coordinator for that program. I thought that might be a beneficial item just to educate all of the members on Climate Smart Communities, what's currently going on with that program, and how that can benefit the town as well as our residents.
Did you have an opportunity to talk to her yet to see if she was available for January?
Nope.
Okay.
But if this committee is interested, then I can see if she'd like to speak in January.
I think that one's just a head nod, yes.
Okay, sorry.
I think we would,
Sounds great.
Yeah.
we would like to be
She heard
able to do
silence,
that.
it was yes.
So
Yes.
this progress document, obviously it's got topics that we discussed over the course of last few months or so, and some things got added into it, which is great. But I guess, are we using this to determine what our focus area is? So these definitive goals will be our focus area for 2024, so the.
I think that was the start of coming up with some specific goals, and if anything from, that we want to, this is ours to add things to.
Yeah, so like the town sustainability code, for example, that's a great one that I think, have we made a formal recommendation for the town to develop that? Or
EEAC previously has made a formal recommendation that the town develop the code. And then the next step is once the staff members are comfortable with it in multiple departments, it would come back to this committee for review. And then this committee would recommend, when they're comfortable, that it go to the town board to be code.
So it's with town departments right now.
Yes.
So it's being drafted now.
Yes.
And will be ready sometime in '24.
Yep.
And the last time they did make some changes, or it got close enough, it was actually given to the EEAC at the time.
Yep.
To review and kind of see how it was put together and to come up with, it was a really good understanding as to how the town develops a code. What sources do they use as a benchmark? What sources do they use as a straw man, just to be able to come up with that?
And since then, New York State has NYSERDA specifically has come out with a draft solar code, geothermal code, and wind code that have been included in the current draft sustainability code. Part of what we need direction on from the town board is if they would like the whole sustainability code to move forward at once, or if they want just the solar code to come out first, as that is the most, that would have the most effect right now, as we're currently having mostly solar come in as renewable energy. We've also started including battery storage and electric vehicle charging in the mass document, as that has become something that needs to be included.
Okay. But this is not one like we did with the tree code where we would help write that.
You would help review it and edit.
Yeah, because I remember looking at the original one, we talked about adding battery storage. We had a speaker come in and talk about that, which was great. And, that was, I don't know, maybe 8 months ago or so. So I was just wondering where that stood now and what can we do to support that? Because I think that's an important one, would be a great goal to have along with these other things that are on here. And the other one is the EPOD review, right? So it has not been reviewed in a while. Is the town doing that already, or do we need to make a recommendation to the town to review those?
So the town has started the review with the woodlot EPOD or woodlands EPOD, and that we are expecting to come to this committee next year. But with the timing, the town board wanted this committee to focus on the tree law and then get input with the new town board members for the EPOD.
So Rosanne, I'm going to use your brain while you're still here. I recall many years ago doing something, we had maps spread out all over. Because it was to do with the EPODs. And I don't know how we accomplished it, but we actually worked at, or what we were comparing it with, but we were doing
Something with the maps?
Yes, we marked out EPOD, but I don't know what what procedure we
Well,
followed or.
So for reference, my current understanding, correct me if either of the other staff members here see it different, when it comes to defining the location of the EPODs, most of them are based on state and federal wetlands or floodplain. So those we don't have much input in. However, the other two, which is steep slope and woodlot or woodlands, those are based on aerial and LiDAR data.
Okay.
So that's not something that we would need this committee to specifically review. Generally, that's something that staff works on. And then if there's questions as to if it's a woodlands EPOD and someone says that all of the woods are actually dead, like all of the trees are dead and dying, then we would have them provide that information and some formal item, whether it's an inventory or something else. And based on that, we would review it and make a determination.
Okay.
Or the planning board or the town board would make a determination.
I was just trying to recall what we did because I know we had.
Prior to the town having as much use out of our GIS system, out of GIS, that might be why you would review it by hand.
Okay.
And it could have been that you were reviewing maps for open space. Truthfully, I don't have the longevity with Conservation Board to know.
Maybe try to get in touch with some. I believe we were comparing. It might have been aerials that we were literally comparing to because we were drawing lines and such. So
It sounds like that. So that
but-
would be something as that EPOD gets closer to.
So specifically, what the town board is looking for us to review once it gets through the town attorney is the EPOD code.
Which I think is of more interest to us as it is, since
agree.
we've had to deal with
And
how it's written
The
now.
EPOD code affects how this committee reviews development projects when they do come to this committee. So I definitely think it'd be beneficial
great.
as the town board, and the town board wants the committee to review it, so. But right now, that is going through staff and the town attorney.
Okay. So as that becomes available, then that would go high on our goal
Yes.
list for.
Yeah. And that will just, when it is ready, it'll come directly to us.
Yep.
So this is a little thing, but it might be a low-hanging fruit, so to speak. A town flower, would that be something we would look to add to an Arbor Day? I mean, I know it's not a tree thing, but.
I mean, my understanding currently is that Arbor Day items also depend on pollinators and native planting.
Okay.
So I could see the benefit if the town board is interested in pursuing a town flower. I'm not sure exactly right now how we would initiate that process.
I think we'll need to hold that one off
yeah.
to January for discussion, just
Oh,
kind
sure.
of looking
Yeah,
at the clock.
just to
But
bring it.
something to consider with that is if the town board
Oh, it is
is
there.
interested in a town flower, then maybe this committee can go through that process earlier in the year and then potentially give away that town
Yes.
flower at the Arbor Day celebration.
Well, that's what we had originally been thinking when the previous committee was discussing it, voting and then trying to make available some seeds or
Okay.
seedlings. And I'm sure color Penfield green would help out with that.
So I think that when Arbor Day discussions and if town flower is something that we would want to promote, assist, whatever, then that should also be high in our January discussion as well. Just because of the timing of Arbor Day, with it being late in April, we need to make sure that gets on Park and Rec schedule and, yeah.
So could you do again, like a marketer here, but could you do a town flower naming contest and donate the money to charity?
I don't yet know where money would come into it, but I think the Parks Department or Rec Department, specifically, I mean the Rec Department, might be interested in helping facilitate something like that.
Any kind of way of getting community engagement, I mean, they would be all over that. I would be.
Engagement, and then also just putting money back into the community, right? Like if you did a flower, like, I don't know, like people could recommend flowers and donate some money, or I don't know.
Yeah. So,
I
okay.
think Doug had brought in listings of native species.
Yeah. I'd like to hold off this discussion,
No,
given, given that we have 10 minutes to
Yeah.
Sharing that.
finish our agenda here. I just want to make sure that we keep moving.
Does anyone have any additions to discussion topics or definitive goals at this time?
I think keep working at it. You know, we all have access to it. We can all put things in there. So if you do have ideas that come up, please, you know, like I said, this is ours to really look at.
It's the committee's document, it's not just staff.
Yes.
So-
So it was nice of Matt to, as we had that brain dump that in October, was to kind of capture those ideas for us. And then we do have a couple deadlines down there. If you can scan up to those, is just, so the April, so we would need to do a tree order significantly early to make sure that,
If we're looking to do a tree giveaway at the
Okay.
Arbor Day celebration, then we would need to do an order
Okay.
by March 3rd. So
and is there money available to us?
There is. yeah.
Okay. So that would also be something we'd need to make firm up in January.
And then Arbor Day is referenced for the timing for an Arbor Day celebration. And then if the town is going to become a Tree City USA as of next year, then the due date is December 1st for all of the actions to be completed and the application to be submitted. So.
Okay. Okay, in the little bit of time left, I do want to pop through some of our new business areas, and one is just an update on new events. I think the first one was the one that I attended, the Regional Sub-Basin Work Group meeting for the New York State Great Lake Program. And I did get to, ended up being virtually that I did attend. It was quite an interesting session that they reviewed the current goals for the New York Great Lakes program, and talked about how some of the projects that communities have done. Big discussion on the availability of resources in addition to some grant monies for those affected communities. I think one of the things with us not being a coastal community or having a significant water body within Penfield, I think this isn't something we've actually focused on.
So we've done a little bit pertaining to the south end of the bay. That's the part that's in Penfield. And then up the east side, which is mostly adjacent to steep slope area, so is not very developed.
But I do have the minutes from that meeting, and if you are interested, I could send them to Matt for distribution if you wanted to hear what some of the discussions were. Are you guys interested in that?
Probably won't read it.
Okay.
I know, I was going to say, I have so many
Okay.
things coming across.
I found it quite interesting, so it was kind of a thing to be part of, good conversation to hear.
Great.
Okay. The next one,
The next one actually has happened as well. That was December 7th. We sent out information so that if anyone in the committee wanted to attend, they could. But basically, that's just aquatic invasive species. Currently, the town doesn't do anything pertaining to that, other than other groups have come into the town and done some work with the marinas at the south end of the bay. And then the county does inspections and education, so.
Have they found any?
oh, yeah.
Yes.
They have a
Yep.
invasive,
Yeah.
okay.
Then the next item is Walking with a Purpose. That's being a class that's a community item that Color Penfield puts together. The next one is December 20th, and they have one every month for people to join in and take walks and pick up trash and recycling. So, then the next item is the Art of Native Seed Sowing, which is a class that's being put on by Healthy Yards Monroe County with the rec, with the Penfield rec. And that class is for the 13th and the 20th from 9 to 10:30. If you would like to attend or know someone that would like to attend, they can sign up through Penn Rec.
This is not the library, then?
I don't know where that line is, but it's in the Penn Rec magazine that goes out
Okay.
to everyone.
And it's probably being held in the community center.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Sorry.
A lot of, if Megan's doing it, a lot of her classes are sign up through the library. That's what I was, that's the
I know
only,
you can go
that's the only
on
reason I was
that website
wondering,
and sign
so.
up. So
They all connect each other to make sure everybody has
will-
accessibility.
yeah.
They'll refer over if
Yes.
it's necessary, okay.
The last item is the Environmental Innovation Awards and Symposium by Seneca Park Zoo Society. For that, it's twofold. If you would like to nominate anyone or any group, you can do that, and nominations are due by the beginning of February. And then they'll choose who gets those awards. There's 5 different categories, so I would highly recommend, if you think you know anyone that might be doing work in environmental work, look into those categories, and please make nominations, because I think we do need to recognize people in these fields for what they're doing. So those categories are youth, individual, civic, nonprofit, small business, and large business. Both for Penfield, really the first 3 for our residents and nonprofit groups, I think would be huge for any recommendations that you might have.
If you want that information, definitely, I mean, it's under the Seneca Park Zoo website, but you can also, we can send that link out.
Yeah.
If you,
Absolutely.
I don't know, Roy, with you being in business, if you have ideas of partners that you work with, it might be good for that. That would be something to consider.
And even community groups and nonprofits are
Yep.
applicable. Or even if you know anyone in the schools
Right.
that would fall into that. Yeah.
How to do that? Okay, that was our list of things we knew for new events. Is there any other, oh, actually, I forgot, we didn't do E of old business. I
We
did
didn't,
not mean
no. I
to
just let
oversight
you-
that. No, that was like high on my list here, so I will add that in here. Public interest in the EECC membership. This is more not for us in this room here, but just that understanding that we will have an opening on our committee. And so if you are interested, anybody listening to this or watching this, if you are interested in being able to support the environment, energy, conservation efforts of the town of Penfield, please contact the town and let us know.
And applications, well, it's not an application, a resume and a cover letter can be submitted to the supervisor's office, so that can be sent by email to supervisor@penfield.org, or it can be dropped off in the supervisor's office. So if you know anyone that's interested, encourage them, as we definitely have a lot of work to do, and we love resident input.
You have to be a resident of the town.
Yes, you have to be a resident of the town. But there's not an age limit either.
Not an age
so
limit, right.
We
We'll
have
do
had
that.
students from high school on the committee. We've had lots of every age in between. So,
Okay. Is there any other new business that we do need to bring up? Other than, I think we've given a couple follow-up items to see if Rachel would be potentially available for January and come up with action on some of our goals in January.
great.
Okay, at this point in time, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Well, second.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
And goodbye.
Any opposed? Just let me know here. Okay, so I'm calling this meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee for the month of December closed as of 6:00 PM.